Nice. All right. Welcome back to United We Talk, the podcast where we talk about what the hell is going on in the world, looking from our different bubbles and try to like come together and actually make sense of reality and the world, of politics and culture. And I just want to plug my book here. We Can Do This: Overcoming the Political Divide and Create the World We Want to Live in. I just got a text from someone who read the book that I did not expect to be this positive about it, and just wanted to share that message. Let me see here where it is. He said, I'm 75 pages in and thank you. Wow, the weight of trying to make sense of my own thoughts and explain myself has been lifted because you've already put into writing what otherwise may have taken untold time to assimilate. Thank you for laying out an educational and rational path to healing a society rife with emotional turmoil. Grateful for you and what you've shared. And then he offers to carry his book in his shop and all that good stuff. So get a copy of the book, read it, see what's up. And now, what's up, Beth? What is going on in the world?
There's a lot going on in politics, at least.
What are we seeing? What are you seeing?
Well, one of the things I'm seeing is that the election, the popular vote in the election is actually closer than it looked like it was a week ago, which is fascinating. So I don't know if you're seeing that in your bubble or not, but like my impression is that the Trump bubble is seeing like mandate, biggest mandate ever, like won by a landslide. And my Harris bubble is seeing more of like, what's being reported is that the difference is now down to 1.4% of the population. Okay. And that there's like that voted for Trump than for Harris. So like Trump got 49.9 and Harris got 48.6, something like that.
Got it.
Of the popular vote. Uh-huh. And that the difference in the number of people who voted in 2020 versus 2024 has shrunk significantly. So we're down to a $2.5 million people difference, not the 10 or 15 million difference that people were talking about last week, especially in the Trump bubble.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
So have you been seeing that? Like my question is, are you seeing that in your bubble?
Not exactly. No. What I have been seeing is that there's a lot of mention of or allegations or allegations, I suppose, of fraud in some of those states, like I think Arizona, Nevada, that are still counting votes and that are counting slow. And we're seeing some of the same things that we saw in 2020, especially when it comes to Senate races.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've been seeing. And I haven't looked into it in detail, but it's like the question is if it's correct that there was massive cheating in 2020, like why wasn't it there in 2024? What happened? Was it because of Lara Trump and her army of lawyers? Was it because they just decided like it's too much where we can't cheat? Is it because they did cheat but it wasn't enough? Is it like what was it, right?
Or is it because they didn't cheat? Like, was there not any cheating last time?
No, but what I said was like, if we assume that they did cheat in 2020, why didn't they in 2024? That was my premise.
So that's an interesting premise. To like, why would you start from that premise as opposed to maybe there wasn't cheating?
No, I'm just saying from that perspective, I'm just laying out the perspective. If the assumption is that there was cheating, this would be the explanation. So like, why do I think there's cheating? Because
No. I mean, you can if you want, but what I was really saying is like, it's just so interesting that the bubble that you're in presumes that cheating now.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's obvious that there was cheating.
Doesn't.
Like completely obvious that there was cheating, massive cheating in 2020. Like, yeah. So like, why wouldn't I assume that? Like, to me, it's blatantly obvious.
We should probably talk about that. I'm not sure I'm prepared to talk about it right now, but yeah, that's fascinating. So are you seeing Trump won by a landslide? He has a mandate. He can do whatever he wants. He's been charged with that. Is that what you're seeing?
I mean, I'm definitely seeing mandate, right? And landslide. Yeah. Like he can do whatever he wants. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess to some extent, like, I think I think the read that I see is that he was elected to clean up, the mess in the government and the mess left by not just Biden, but years of bad policies and bad administrations. The forever wars, the immigration, the government bloat and fraud and waste and all of that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What I'm seeing is very different. It's really much more around he may have won the popular vote, but it wasn't by much. And he has not, and by he, I mean they, really, like the Republicans didn't win by much. Control of the Senate is close. They're not going to be able to do everything that they want to do without having to go through a lot of senators and like a lot of other stuff.
Well,
so
I think
there is no mandate like that. Like, kind of take heart. There's no mandate.
Yeah. I mean, mandate is such an interesting thing because what the hell does it mean? It's more, it's like a psychological thing, right? Like, it's like.
Yes, like, but also I saw some stats that were like, what's the difference in percentage points in the vote of Democrats versus Republican going back like 25 years or 30 years? Actually, it must have been longer than that. And this election is one of the very closest ones in terms of the difference between the popular vote, Republican, Democrat. Like Reagan won his second term with a 19% split. Or 18.7% split, like massive, like that's a mandate, right?
Right.
Like that kind of split.
Yeah.
I think Obama won by with a 9% split, something like that, his second term.
Yeah.
Whereas Trump's is 1.5%.
Yeah, I think, compared to recent elections, it seems like, I think nobody was really expecting that he would actually win the popular vote this time around. So it's probably based on that. Like, oh shit, like he not only won the presidency, I think a lot of people expected that, but they didn't expect that he would also win the popular vote. Yeah. Back to the question of I think its reality is that you just saw the Senate select John Thune, what is his name, as the Senate Majority Leader today.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and he's decidedly not on Team Trump. He's not Trump's guy. So I think it's absolutely psychologically, Trump and his team might feel, and the Republicans in general might feel that he's got the mandate to fulfill his vision. But again, I think it's kind of a meaningless term because does he have the political power or not? Does he have the will or not? That's really what it comes down to. And the fact is that someone was pointing out the DOGE, Elon and Vivek's Department of Government Efficiency, they don't have any formal power. They can make recommendations and then it's up to either the executive or the legislative or the judiciary branch to actually carry it through. And if the majority of senators are actually against Trump because they're still, part of the Uni Party and the deep state agenda, and they're all profiting from the waste and the fraud and the corruption, then, it's going to be hard to get done. He's going to need all the Republicans, which is unlikely. Maybe he can convince some Democrats, probably not but he would need a supermajority for most of the things that he wants to do. And so it's going to be really hard.
Right.
So, which is why this is not like a
department. Like the department is not even actually an official department. Like Trump can't just executive order a new department in the federal government. That's a congressional responsibility. So the reason I raised it is because
I just want to say that's it's one of those silly things. It's called the dark because it's a meme, right? Doge, right? So who gives a crap? If it's not a department, right? That's not the point. Yeah, but go ahead.
The point for some people, yeah. The reason I raised the mandate thing is I think a lot of frontline Trump voters, people who are on the ground, the people that I know, think that he's going to suddenly wave his magic wand, or they are Elon and him are going to wave some magic wand and they're not going to have to pay income taxes anymore, and the price of groceries is going to go down dramatically. And there's a lot of misconception because I hear it, I see it on social media, that some of the people who voted, some of the people I know who voted for Trump and co think that vote means that the cost of groceries is going to go down starting January 21st, that they are not going to have to pay income taxes anymore because Trump is going to get rid of taxes. I mean, there's all these misconceptions out there. People think
But
that the
I
mass
mean,
deportations are going to start January 26th. They're going to start seeing people leave the country. Like that, all those things are going to just boom happen. And
yeah.
it's not. That's not
I
the
mean,
way this works.
they're idiots,
So
obviously. So, like, I mean, idiots are going to believe idiotic things, and we can't really fix that, other than yes, a more long-term
did
fixing
you
the
just call
education
Trump
system.
voters idiots, Calvin?
I called idiots
Kamala
idiots.
Harris didn't do that.
I called idiots idiots. I didn't call Trump voters idiots. I called idiots idiots, and some of them vote for Trump, and some of them vote for Kamala. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I mean, people can believe all kinds of crazy things. We can't really, do anything about that.
Right.
Yeah. What is your? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I have a couple other things on my list, but
I'm
your
just
turn.
like, what are your hopes for this administration, and what are your fears about this administration?
My hopes are that. So going back to something you said about like these Republicans actually do want corruption and fraud and inefficiency and all that kind of stuff. I don't see that. What I see are, I'm not saying all senators are like not corrupt. Like, of course, I'm sure some are, but I think there's a fly in here. It's driving me nuts. I hope that senators who have a different view about what they want to have happen in the country than what the Republicans, the Team Trump Republicans have. My hope is that those people in positions of power, whether they're governmental or nonprofit or corporate or whatever else, will do what they can to prevent his agenda, their agenda, the Project 2025 agenda from going forward.
Okay. So wait. So my question to you, what are your hopes for this administration? So your hope for this administration is someone sabotages them?
My hope is that they don't get to do most of the things that they are saying that they are going to try to do. Not that they're sabotaged, but that they are prevented by the rule of law, by the way the government works, by the way society works.
Sure. So, but what you're saying is that you don't see any merit at all in any of the things that Trump or any of his people want to do.
I mean, I'm all for reducing increased efficiencies if they can be had without sacrificing valuable outcomes, right? Like if you can administer the food stamps program in such a way that the same benefits reach people, but you save administrative dollars. Sure. Do I believe that's what Musk really wants to do? No. I believe that's like a nice gloss on what maybe they want to do, but I don't think that's what do you think they want to do?
What do you think they want to do?
I think that, that's a big question. When you look at the Department of Governmental Efficiency, what I think they want to do is find ways to reduce regulation and increase profits for corporations like Musk's corporations and Trump's.
Wow. Really? You think that's what it's about?
Mm-hmm.
You think that's really?
Really?
Okay.
I mean, do you really believe that Musk cares that the U.S. government wastes money?
Yeah, I really do. Why wouldn't he care?
Why would he care?
Do you think anybody cares about that?
Wasting money? Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people care.
Yeah. But just not Musk.
Well, I don't see why he would care so much more than anybody else. I mean, maybe he cares a little bit. Maybe a lot of people care a little bit. I don't think it's anybody's I think it's very few people's rallying cry reason to exist in the world is they want to reduce wasteful government spending. So sure, I'm sure some people do.
But there's a difference between the reason to exist in the world and care.
Yes. Sure. I don't trust Musk. I don't trust him at all. So I don't believe that his stated purpose is his real purpose.
You don't trust him.
I haven't spent a ton of time diving into it. These are the impressions that I've got and what I've picked up.
Sure. Yeah. I just again, language. So you don't trust Musk. You don't trust him to do what exactly, or what specifically don't you trust?
I don't trust him to tell me the truth, to have the
about.
best interests, to have the best interests of poor people or marginalized people at heart. Um, I trust that I think that he is running some very massive corporations, getting a lot of federal money, and
Mhm.
he's invested in keeping that flow.
Hmm. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of
All right.
practical.
So I'm not Musk. I don't know him personally.
Right.
But I'm actually from what I know about him, I'm actually reading the Walter Isaacson biography about him right now. Highly recommend it. It's really good. Um, but the one thing that's been consistent in that story is his commitment to his mission, which is to make human consciousness multiplanetary, like human
Mhm.
civilization on Mars,
Right.
and to make planet Earth energy sustainable with Tesla and batteries and solar and those things. Um, and it's been very, very consistent. And many times he's risked everything, all of his money. He doesn't own fancy houses. He doesn't own a ton of shit. He owns his businesses, and he continuously puts everything on the line for his mission. I think the reason that he cares deeply about government efficiency is because he's seeing firsthand how the government inefficiency is making it harder for him to achieve the goal of making humanity multiplanetary. Not because it's going to make him a ton of money. I don't think he gives a crap about money. Literally, I really don't. I think he gives a crap about the mission. And yes, money is necessary to fulfill that mission, but that is the read that I get of him. And I think it's very, very, very interesting that the richest person in the world doesn't do it for the money and doesn't give a damn about the money. He's willing to go broke again and again. And like, famously, he said, like, they can build a rocket faster than the government will give them permission to launch it. And like, that's just wrong. And I think that one of the stories in the book is about SpaceX versus Boeing, who are both bidding for contracts to, I think it's launch a mission to the International Space Station. And Boeing had 50,000 people working on it and weren't able to get it done. And SpaceX was able to get it done with 500 people. And I think that is the kind of thing that Musk brings to everything that he does, including to the government. And Twitter is another example, right, where they went from 8,000 employees to 2,000 employees and are able to innovate much faster. There's been much more innovation on X since Elon took it over, and it's a much more thriving platform. And you can disagree about like specifics about it, but you can't argue with the fact that it's still up, it's growing, and there's been a lot more innovation product wise on the platform than there was before, with 4 times the number of people. And so if we can do what the government does with a quarter of the people, that's 75% of tax revenue that we can send straight back to people's pockets, everything else being equal.
Yeah.
And deliver the same outcome, the same value, essentially. I think that's a really good thing. I think it would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's like the one, like that efficiency piece. Like if it's possible to spend less on bureaucracy and have the same results, great. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing I could get excited about in terms of hopes.
So then,
Do you have? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to, and we can put a pin in it and just return to it. But I think it's not, you're never going to be able to match results one for one. Right? It's like you want to, there's going to be the idea that I see, and again, I'm not Musk, I'm not Trump, I'm not any of these people. I can just say like what my vision is. That's what I can, what I can vouch for. And I believe that Musk and Trump are on the same trajectory, but we're not obviously the same, wouldn't do it the same way. But what I want to see is something where we reduce government dramatically and bring all that back to the people, and the vast majority of people are going to be way better off way better off, 99%. But there are going to be people who will get less from the government and at least temporarily will be worse off. Like, it's impossible to make a major shift like this without losing some people. But hopefully the idea would be that the 99% who are way better off, some of those people feel compelled to then go catch some of those people who are worse off, and like it way more than makes up for it. But if we're going to insist on like there can't be like a hair on any person that isn't combed the right way, then obviously we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen enough of a plan to be able to give an opinion about it, right? Like those
I don't think anybody has
things.
Yeah, nobody's
right?
seen the plan yet. Yeah. It's
right.
just
so.
What are our hopes and what do we believe in?
Those are the plans that are being made, right? Like the plans, like what seems to be being made are honestly like appointments of, like so far what I'm seeing the Trump incoming administration doing is putting people in positions of power who are not qualified for those positions of power.
Okay.
Which
like what?
Makes me nervous. So.
Like what?
The defense secretary guy.
Oh, seems awesome to me.
Hegseth, something like that.
Why would he be qualified? What makes him unqualified?
Does he have any like administrative governmental experience at all? Like he's a retired military person, right? But he's secretary of the defense. Like the dude has the nuclear like procedures. He's in charge of.
It's interesting. Like what qualifies someone to a position like that? That's a great question. How do we answer that?
It is a great question. Like
what qualifies someone?
Like so this guy in particular seems to be quite erratic and reactionary.
Can we answer like what qualifies someone to do what they do? Well, how do we know?
That's kind of broad. Like to do a government, to be in the cabinet, like to be in the U.S. government's cabinet.
For example,
qualifies somebody
what qualifies someone to lead something? Yeah. I mean, if we look at Musk again, was he qualified to build space rockets? Was he qualified to build electric cars? Was Trump qualified to run for president? Who the fuck is qualified? What does that mean?
Part of why sure, we can totally talk about that. Part of why that grates on my nerves, Calvin, though, is because I have heard a lot of people talk about how, like when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Like people have to be qualified for those jobs. Like white men are qualified for them. And so like if you're giving jobs that white men are qualified to women of color, then that's affirmative action and it's wrong. And like, so like to have you now want to talk about what qualifies somebody for a job and like really get into that doesn't quite sit right. Like,
got it. Okay. So it's great. Let's double click on that. This is really important. I don't think anybody that I talk to, anybody who sees the world that I do, and I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm not speaking for every Republican or Trump voter or right wing or whatever. The point where I'm coming from is I don't care what the color of your skin is. I care that you are competent qualified for the role. Well, but the thing is, the qualified. The reason I double clicked on that word is like it doesn't mean. It means that you have what it takes. It doesn't mean that you have degrees. It doesn't mean that you have necessarily the right like certain experience. It doesn't like we don't. It's a hard thing to measure. But the point is that your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, where you grew up, none of that stuff should have anything to do with whether or not you're qualified. It's not that you have to be a white male. No, nobody's arguing that case that I'm aware of. It's that we should not look at whether you're a white or male or anything else of that nature in order to determine who's qualified. So there's certain jobs like being a pilot. You can test that, or SAT scores or whatever. There are tests that we have like that we use to assess. And you look at them and you don't look at anything else. Or, however, but like in this case, who gets to lead a department? Like when you become the Secretary of Defense, like you have a whole bureaucracy that are all the subject matter experts in all the different things. And that's not changing, at least not overnight. In my mind, what you want in a Secretary of Defense is one who's deeply committed to the vision of the leader, in this case, the president, and carry out his mission in his department. And he's the person that needs to translate the vision of the leader into what that means specifically for this department. That's what I see as the qualification in someone in that position.
It's interesting. To me,
and he has to be smart and good at learning and good at adapting and good at problem solving and leading a team and things like that. Inspiring a team. Yeah, go ahead. Interesting.
So he's a Fox News personality. Like he's a Fox News host. Like that's his background. And Hegseth. And
he's more than that, right? But yes.
Sure, probably. But that's what he's known for. Or that's what I know him for, I guess I should say.
But he also is the CEO of some veterans organization. He's written a book. He's been, soldier, Marine, combat, whatever. He's been thinking about this for a long time, as far as I understand.
He seems to be fairly focused on culture issues, women in the military, like wokeness, that kind of stuff, war crimes, like wanting Trump to get in, like in his past administration, like intercede for some vets who were accused of war crimes, to try to make things better for them. Like he seems to have a culture fit with the incoming administration. He seems to be loyal to the incoming administration, and that's why he's being picked. To me, those are not the only things. Like if I were looking for, let's say I was the president and I was looking for a Secretary of Defense, I would want somebody who knows the military inside and out, who had spent years inside that system and knew it, knew how it worked. Someone who had relationships with their counterparts in other militaries around the world. Somebody who had deep financial expertise. Because even though there's lots of people who are going to have, financial say, like you want a leader of the military who understands the finances around the military. Somebody who will prioritize keeping American soldiers alive, who understands battle strategy and all of that. Like I want that person in charge of the military, not somebody who has opinions about American popular culture.
Well, so the way I think about it is you got to pick a leader. It doesn't work in isolation, right? A leader works with a team. And so the same person who is really clear on the mission and the vision of the department might not be the person who's in the nitty gritty details of the finances or the other things, right?
But they have to have a high level.
But as a leader, you have to have like the right core, whatever that is that the situation requires. And there's different requirements for different problems that we're trying to solve right now with the organization, right? So at different times you need different leaders, and then they surround themselves with other people that can help fulfill that picture. So I don't think he needs to do all of those things. The way I think I look at the military is that the U.S. military, I heard Balaji say this a couple of years ago, and it just resonated with me. The U.S. used to win wars without fighting, and now we fight wars without. Now we lose. We fight wars and don't win. I forget. He said it better than me. But like, what war has America won in recent memory? Like, fucking nothing. Like the military is not that good. It's kind of shite. Like it's big and impressive, but we're not fucking winning anything. Yeah, like
trying not to. Yeah, I mean, we could talk that.
No, go ahead. Trying not to what?
I mean, trying not to get into active combat. Like I feel like they're
doing the opposite. They're doing the opposite. Name a year in the past 50 years that America has not been in active combat somewhere. Name one.
I don't know.
It doesn't exist. They've been in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and like they're Vietnam and Korea. Like they're all over the fucking place. Like why? I think, and that's, to me, that is the mission, is to stop being. I think the only reason that America is in these endless wars there's no national interest purpose. There's no public good purpose for those wars. The only purpose is that when there's a war, everybody in the military industrial complex profits. General Eisenhower said that in his farewell address, and has been true. I think is more true than he realized, and is more true than anybody realizes. Like,
so if let's say all that's true, I'm not quite there yet, but let's say all that's true. Do you want somebody in charge of somebody as Secretary of Defense with almost no experience of?
I think that's perfect, and here's why. Here's why.
Governance.
Because it's not a governance problem. It's a culture problem. The culture in the U.S. military at the top level is broken. They're focused on white rage and like DEI quotas and shit, and they're not winning fucking wars. That's their job. Their job is to crush it on the battlefield. That's what matters. They're not doing a good job. We need a complete overhaul of the culture of the DoD. That's my assessment. Massive overhaul.
That's interesting.
It's horribly broken. They can't recruit people anymore. People don't want to fight for the military. Like, they have recruiting problems. Massive is what I've seen. I haven't looked at research and data, but that's what I'm saying. Nobody wants to fight the military in the military. Like, no, nobody obviously, but like, right. There's a massive cultural problem, and it's not the rank and file soldiers. It's in who gets promoted. Like, you lose some major battle, you get promoted. Like, every time you fuck something up, you get promoted. Like, Afghanistan withdrawal is another like crazy example of like, what the fuck was going on with that? It was the dumbest thing ever. So yes, major cultural problem, need a major shake up. And I don't know Hegseth too well, but I deliberately don't want someone who's deeply entrenched in the military to do that job.
Interesting.
I want someone from the outside to do that.
Well, I'm not an expert on the U.S. military. Like, I don't understand the ins and outs of all of that. I am nervous about placing someone in a position of immense governmental authority who is a Fox News television personality. Like, and even if he's written a book, even if he's fought in the military before, right? Like, that is such a high level position of authority. And especially when you pair it with things like,
is it because of Fox or because of, go ahead.
No, anyone. Mike Huckabee for ambassador to Israel, Stephen Miller as deputy chief of staff, right? Having this military purge thing, what is it called? The board to review military officers and like get rid of the ones that aren't loyal enough to Trump. Like, what he's doing right now, what the administration is doing right now, looks to me to be putting people in positions of power based solely on how reactionary they are socially, culturally. Like, those are my words. How like far right they are socially and culturally, and on their loyalty to Trump. And that does not look to me like a healthy path forward for a democracy or a republic or whatever you want to call what we have.
Yeah. So I would make the distinction between loyalty to Trump personally versus loyalty to the mission. And
would Trump make that distinction? I don't know.
I mean, I genuinely in my heart believe so. I don't know Trump personally. I've seen him in person speak. I've been with his supporters. To me, it's a very warm and loving crowd. He's a very warm and loving man. That's what I see when I see Trump. It's a lot of fucking love, really, genuinely. And I think he is doing this job for the love of the country and for the love of people, genuinely. He's not doing it for money. He's not doing it for fame or for power. Of course, he likes the fame. He likes to like the like that stuff. But he's been the president. He's been out of being a president. He knows like in 4 years he's going to be out. He's no longer going to be president. He's just going to be a former president, and then the media is still going to fucking hate him probably. So I think he's genuinely doing it as to pay back, because he loves this country dearly and he wants to leave it better. He wants to make it a better place. I genuinely believe that. I could be wrong, but I believe that's where he's coming from. And so I think that the mission, yes, if you're going to stab him in the back, he's going to get back at you. He's going to come back at you. But also, if you then later come back and you say, hey, I was wrong, you have like, you're better than I thought you were, then he will invite you back in, as he did with JD, right? Like, if you're like, you know what, I was wrong about my assessment of you. I see what you're doing, and I appreciate what you're doing and where you're coming from. He's like, all right, let's be friends. He doesn't hold grudges in that way. That's the Trump that I see. Yeah, I think he's a fucking good man. I think he's a really good man.
A very different person than I see. I don't see that at all. I see someone who is erratic, says very hostile things to people that he disagrees with, like the whole enemies within thing, for example. Well, so hang on.
Yeah.
Like, who speaks in very harsh terms towards people who disagree with him or that he disagrees with, who is willing to use threats of violence against other people, who's willing to ally himself with white nationalists, Christian nationalists, who swears a lot, says racist things, sexist things, grab him by the pussy, I will never forget or forgive, who tolerates people like Nick Fuentes, I think, is the one who's written Your Body, My Choice always, right? Who's not condemned that, who continues to take support from somebody like that. Like, that is somebody who has morals and beliefs that I find despicable. So if he's a nice guy, if he loves people, I don't care. Like, those things disqualify him in my mind.
Okay. All right. So
have you heard the My Body, Your Body, My Choice thing? Have you heard that?
I mean, I saw it trending on Twitter. I think, Nick Fuentes was trolling people. Like, trolls are going to troll. I'm like, whatever. I don't.
Trolls are going to troll, sure, but like, if the Republican Party does not want to be seen as
what does this have to do with Trump and Republicans at all? Why does this have to do anything to do with Republicans and Trump? Because that this Nick dude is like tweeting something.
Yeah, I forget what the relationship is between him and Trump. I'll have to look that up.
I don't think there's any.
Well, let's look, because I feel like there was, that I had seen some. What I see is that the right wing, the Republican Party, doesn't condemn that. Like, doesn't say, we don't want people like that in our party. Like, we don't want people like that talking about that. That maybe the only relationship is that Fuentes supports Trump. Like, maybe that's it. Mm-hmm. But if it's not condemned, then it's not condemned. So I was just looking it up. White supremacist, anti-Semitic leader, Nick Fuentes, after he was hosted by the president of an influential group that has donated millions of dollars to top Texas Republican officials. Photos of him with those administrators. He dined with former President Trump last year, drawing widespread condemnation. So there's some relationship between Fuentes and the Republican Party.
Okay. Like, dined with, what does that mean?
I don't know. I'd have to look more. But regardless,
I think, to me, it's just like Nick is like a little fnat somewhere. He's a little gnat. He doesn't mean fucking anything. He doesn't have power. He's not in the cabinet. He's not an advisor. He's not
culture. It creates culture, and if the people in power don't condemn that culture, like, have you heard, like, people are like, boys are repeating that stuff to girls in high school playgrounds and like experiences, and there's like, it's become like a whole thing in the social media world of people repeating that, your body, my choice. It's a rape threat. Like, that's not acceptable and should be condemned by people who are coming into power. So that's just one of the things that I'm seeing go by. And
so
if Trump and his team doesn't want to be seen as racist and sexist, they have to condemn stuff like that. That's how it works.
in your book, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like, it's self-evidently obvious. Like, it has nothing to do with them. Nick is over there being like a little gnat on the wall. Who gives a crap? Like, that's my perspective. If kids say stupid shit, like, I just don't see what it has to do with Trump. Enemies within.
Mm-hmm.
What if there is an enemy within? What if there's one?
Meaning a traitor, meaning a
Meaning,
Rush, somebody who is loyal to Russia
no,
and is inside the
no.
Trump campaign.
I mean, forget Trump,
Like, what do you
forget
mean?
Russia, forget Russia. Like, no, but like,
What's an enemy?
well, what if there is an organization or a group of people who are pulling strings and controlling things that are actually not on the side of the American people, that are manipulating media, that are manipulating social media, that are manipulating government officials, that are corrupting, blackmailing, bribing people to do things that are explicitly against the interests of the American people? What if that's actually the case, that those people are there and they're actively trying to tear down, destabilize America from within?
My question would be, what's their motivation? Like, are those people who are loyal to other governments, other nation states, and are wanting to tear down the US government so that our military is weak and therefore they can take over other countries? Like, what's the
Mm-hmm.
motivation there? Um, because otherwise this vague enemy, like that looks to me like a really good way to say, if you disagree with me, you're my enemy. And I
And
firmly believe that that's not what we want. We want dissent is
no, but I
patriotic. Like,
think
we want
in my
this kinds
mind,
of conversations.
any normal person who hears him talk about that, in my mind, is like, yeah, there's an enemy within. It's like, it's obvious. Why has there been this decline in America, in the school system, in the education system, in the military, et cetera, for decades? Why? Well, because there's some kind of force inside the country who's destroying it. That's obvious. To then take that to mean, if you disagree with me, you're the enemy. If you vote for the other party, you're the enemy. Like, that's absurd. Like, why would you make that leap? But we do, because the media, that's how the media and Kamala has been consistently interpreting it. But that's not the natural interpretation of that. That's not that to me, that's obviously not what he means. But it is, and this is where I get pissed off, is what I see is that we have a media and a Democrat Party that will deliberately take things that Trump says, make it mean something that is not at all what he meant to any normal person who actually is there or listens to it or pays attention. But then people believe that that's what he mean, or like a large number of people do believe that, and then they get traumatized and they cry and they weep and they're like deeply how can America elect a fascist? And they're like, they get really upset and they're traumatized not by Trump, but by this fake monster that the media is painting of Trump. And I think that's a fucking crime, because that's traumatizing, and it's not Trump that did that, it's the media that did that, and Kamala. And I mentioned Kamala specifically because I was following the Kamala HQ account, and literally every single thing that they wrote, that I saw them write, was a lie. Let's talk about the famous Charlottesville hoax. Have you looked at
hang
that?
on. Let's
No,
not
no.
go get there yet. I need to talk about the enemies within thing.
Yeah, but I just want to promise you we'll go back. Well, we got 12 minutes, but can I just really quickly, have you seen the Charlottesville hoax? Like good people on both sides, fine people hoax. Have you heard that? Like,
I have heard that, yes, that statement was made. There are good people on both sides. And I
and have you seen
understand
that what he said was white nationalists should be condemned? Absolutely. I'm talking about both sides of the issue of, do we want to keep the statue or not? Have you gotten that
Yes.
part? All right.
Yes, I've seen that.
And yet Kamala opened her debate with like that same bullshit, which is a complete lie. And that's just the example of how it works. That's not what he said. That's clearly not what he meant either. And yet it's because like, yeah, he's like, there's fine people amongst the Nazis. That's not what happened. Go, enemies within.
So I think there's two things. We have to, we don't hear these things in a bubble, right? Like, we hear these things in context of American culture and American history. And so in the history of white supremacy in the United States, there has always been this like, find people on both, like the white supremacists are really not like such terrible people, right? They go to church, they fund the, you know, whatever, they're upstanding business people. Like that's part of the culture that those comments are heard in. And so I'd have to go back and look at the details of it. But even if what Trump was referring to is the statue debate, like the specifics of that, we can't ignore all of the rest of that history and culture that's around it. And so that's why people hear it differently than you hear it, or than some people hear it. That's one whole, we could talk about that for 45 minutes, right? Going back to the enemies within thing, like what Trump specifically said was radical left lunatics are the enemy within, right?
Yeah.
So given that Trump frequently speaks in hyperbole and is frequently quite dramatic about things, which I guess is sort of the same as hyperbole, I think it's not crazy that people who have any sort of belief that is to the left of Trump's beliefs could be concerned that they would be seen as an enemy within simply for having beliefs that are further to the left. Like radical left lunatics, does that refer to me? Like, am I a radical left lunatic? Does it refer to anybody who works for NPR or for, any news outlet that's not Fox?
Are you a lunatic?
Like, am I? Right? Like, I know I'm not, but does he think I am? Right? Like, that's a hyperbole. He does not use exact language, Kelvin. He doesn't work like you do. Like, he's not using he doesn't mean lunatics. Like, people who are certified lunatics and in an asylum.
No, but he doesn't mean like someone who's like a normal person and who just is a little bit more, left leaning in their, like, that's not a lunatic, right? Like, nobody would take that to mean a lunatic, or a radical.
I mean, I don't trust him. I don't trust his well-intentionedness.
Right, but do you see how this becomes circular? Right, because you don't trust him because of this the story the media has continuously told you about him. You don't trust him, and so you hear everything that he says through that lens. Like, I would challenge you to go to, I would challenge you to go to like 3 of his rallies and meet people and talk to people there and see how you feel after. Like, I don't think he's ever going to do.
Trump supporters. Like, that's not, I have no lack of exposure to Trump supporters.
But I'm saying specifically the rallies, because that's where the energy of that environment is.
Sure. So the person he specifically referred to as a lunatic was Adam Schiff, right? Like a senator.
I mean, he is a fucking lunatic. He's crazy. He's lied so much. And Adam Schiff was like the spearhead of targeting Trump over this complete bogus Russia bullshit, which Trump knew was bullshit, Adam knew was bullshit, and like everybody played along, and it cost us like years and millions of dollars.
But he's not somebody standing out in front of the courthouse with a shotgun or a bomb. Like, he's not an enemy. He's somebody who disagrees.
No. He's an enemy. He's an enemy. I would agree with Trump on that. Like, Adam Schiff is an enemy of the state, of the people.
Really?
100%.
Why?
Oh, because he's going after an elected president lying, knowing that he's lying, trying to hamper the president. It's one thing to get up and say, hey, I disagree with the president. I have a different policy proposal. I think we should go this way. That's totally fine. But to try to sick your own government on a duly elected president with bogus charges that you know are bogus and lying about them to the media to try to take down the president, that's fucking lunatic, is radical, and is an enemy. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's not how we play the game. We play the game fair. That's how the game is played. You don't do this bullshit.
I'll have to do a little more digging there. That's not been my understanding of. My understanding is that he's somebody who disagrees with Trump, thinks he's dangerous, and is willing to fight fair in order to push back against those policies.
Yeah,
he's an enemy within.
Yeah, I saw nothing fair. But I mean, there's a documentary that's really worth watching called The Plot Against the President that lays out the whole, like, it was a concerted effort. It started before he was elected. They spied on his campaign. They, like, the FISA courts and all that stuff to try to get to everybody. And they're spying on, like, I think 13, 15 people on his campaign during that thing. The Clinton came up with this bullshit, Russia like peeing in the hotel room bullshit, which is all fabricated, to try to like paint him as this Russian agent. And then they continued to pursue this Russian thing, which they knew was bogus. They didn't find anything, obviously. And it was all done to try to oust the president. And if they couldn't oust him, then at least hamper his ability to govern by just keeping him preoccupied with his bullshit. And I think that's enemy within behavior. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think these people shouldn't be in jail. I think these people should be in jail only if they've actually committed a crime that's against the penal code, obviously. But I am convinced that they have many times over. And if they haven't, chances are some of these laws should be changed. Like the secret FISA courts is a disgrace. The fact that they can spy on American citizens. They can spy on me. I'm not a citizen. They're allowed to spy on me. I can't complain about that. I'm not going to complain about that. But they can't fucking spy on you. They shouldn't be able to spy on you without a search warrant that's actually, or like a proper warrant that's signed off on properly. And that was done in the Patriot Act after 9/11, which I also think is an inside job done by an enemy within. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I lay it all out in my book. We can do this. I cover all these things and more, and specifically why I believe what I believe.
Right.
And I mean, we can just go back to JFK. What the fuck happened with JFK, and how come we don't know yet? That like is really a good starting point for this whole thing. And I'm really excited because Kash Patel is in my book one of the good guys. I hope that turns out to be true. We never freaking know. But he's sworn to. I think he's getting some kind of position. He was talking about like having like a declassification office where they just declassify shit because the government right now is classifying fucking everything so that they can hide from the people what they're doing. I want complete transparency, and anybody who tries to hide what the government is doing by deleting evidence, losing evidence, destroying evidence, trying to misspell words using private email servers, I think all of those should be instantly jailable offenses, whether you have done anything underlying or not, because this is the property of the people and you're hiding it from the people. You're trying to hide something from the people. I don't think you should be allowed to do that.
I'm certainly for transparency. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is fun. We need to talk about, I love this conversation about like what you're seeing and what I'm seeing, because like I think that's such a key piece of it. I also would love to have conversations about what do we actually want to see, because I mean that's a big part of it too, right? That it's like we want ultimately the same things. It's just that you see Trump as someone who's going to destroy and prevent all those things, and I see him as someone who's actually going to move us closer to that. And I'm not saying he's perfect, and I don't know for sure. He might turn out to be an evil, self-serving idiot, but I think he's going to do fantastic stuff. I think Elon is going to do fantastic things for us. I think Pete Hegseth is going to do fantastic things. I don't know in detail. I don't freaking know. But I think overall, I'm very, very optimistic and hopeful that things are going to turn out a lot better. And I think that what's possible for us is so far beyond what we can imagine at this point. Like, and just to return to like the SpaceX versus NASA versus Boeing versus the others. Like, nobody was doing space missions. Boeing is struggling. NASA had stopped doing it. And SpaceX, Elon came in and said, hey, let's figure this thing out. Because he wants to go to Mars, not because he wanted to make $1 billion or $1 trillion or whatever, because he wanted to go to fucking Mars. And he's like, let's just figure this out. And it turns out it's figure outable if you just use your fucking brain, but most people don't do that. It's like, it's just, you just look at it and you solve problems, but people get so mired up in like, oh no, and we can't offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. And like, what is this person gonna think? And And like, no, someone's tried that. We can't, like, people, like, the way people operate is so small versus what's possible. And that's what I want to see, is like unlocking what's possible for humanity at a massive scale. And I think it's going to be glorious.
I hope you're right, Calvin. I really do. I would love it if this administration was part of something positive. I have serious, serious doubts, and am particularly concerned about people who are immigrants, legal or not, poor, people of color, women, queer people, trans people, like deep, deep concerns that we will be harmed.
Let's let's make that the topic for next week. So Beth Caden, please put a pin in that reminder, because I think that's a core issue that we need to talk about and resolve. So let's make that the topic of next.
All right.
Next conversation. All right.
See you later.
Cool. See you. Thank you everybody for watching. Love it. Get a copy of the book, upside down, right side up, whichever way. Get a copy of the book, read it. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a great time. Bye.